Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what a day in college football we just had. Literally, I mean, you can't ask for anything better than what we just experienced today. I mean, look, let's start it off with the obvious. We have Alabama coming in as a 20-plus point favorite, and they go into this game. They're the favorites, obviously, by 3 possessions. And they come out against that South Carolina front four, and they get dominated up front. They had no business even being in that ball game. They had no business with the athletes that you have all across the board with Jalen Milroe, with Jam Miller, with Ryan Saul behind, and they finally get the win despite a late comeback. Boy, that was a great game. LSU Ole Miss, I just got finished watching that. Oh, my wow. Wow. We'll get into a lot of that as well. But, guys, I'm looking at the stream right now. None of y'all are copping in. It's all good because guess what? This is going to be recorded. I'm going to have this uploaded tonight. So, guys, make sure y'all do me a favor. If y'all do watch this, make sure y'all hit that like button down below. Let's subscribe. Let's turn on the bell notifications for more from us here at Fourth and Forever. Guys, we have a lot going on during college football season. We have a lot going on in college football. A lot to do. So, guys, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Let's share, subscribe, and let's turn on the bell notifications so that you guys are notified for every time we go on live. I'm about to get our spaces set up here in a little bit so that you guys can join then. We'll get it then right there as well. Welcome to the first ever episode of the College Football Nightcap. I'm your host, Lucas Hill, college football insider and aspiring color analyst in the world of college football. Really excited to have you guys along for the ride. Really excited to share this journey with y'all. Guys, we got a lot going on today. Let's just go ahead and dive right into this. So, you guys know already, and by the way, we are live on Spaces now. Dude, this was just a heck of a ball game. This is one of those games that if you look back on this game, LSU and Ole Miss, that's the one we're going to be talking about first of all. Let's just be honest. Both teams came into this thing in a dogfight. This was a dang good ball game that we just witnessed. Now, you thought last week was interesting with all the upsets and such. It was great and all. But at the end of the day, guys, look, we just witnessed some of the best football that we got to witness. We got to witness a lot of that, guys. And we still got it going on. Kansas State and Colorado are in the middle of playing right now. Kansas State's up 14-7 as we start the third quarter. They're out in, I think they're in Boulder playing that one right now. And it's kind of late down there. But anyway, let's just go ahead and recap this LSU Ole Miss game. What a game. What a game. Guys, this was a heck of a ball game. With just the unbelievable dual threat capable. Look, we knew that going into this one, this was going to be a much different ball game than what we saw last year when it got to 55-49. I think the over-under in this game was like 62.5. That ended up not being – I think that ended up not being the case. But, dude, how about LSU? Coming back from adversity – when adversity hit them square in the face. You're down 10-0 early going into the second quarter. Twice, by the way. Then you get into the third and fourth. Not a whole lot goes on. You exchange field goals throughout that game. And then, boom, final drive of the game. Garrett Nussmeier just turned it up. I mean, he absolutely let that ball rip. that entire rest of that fourth quarter. That final drive belonged to Garrett Nussmeier. And rightfully so. Because when you looked at how he performed in the fourth quarter, down the stretch, there's a reason why he deserves the game ball at the end of the day. Yes, he may not have been his most accurate, 22 of 51, 337, 3 scores into 2 interceptions. But guys, I was very critical early on of him just because of the missed throws he had early on in the game. Aaron Anderson, let me give you the final stats of the game real fast. Going to LSU sides, Cam Durham, 12 for 37. Josh Williams, 9 for 34. Garrett Nussmeier, 2 for 16 yards with the long of 14. And Caleb Jackson, just the 1 carry for -3. LSU's receiving-wise, Kyra Lacey, 5 receptions, 111 yards. Aaron Anderson with 3 receptions for 81. Josh Williams with 3 big catches for 43 yards. Mason Taylor was critical on 2 big plays. First, the fourth down play, that was essentially the game right there. Gets him inside the 30-yard line, and that's what leads to the go-ahead touchdown. Then the big first down that he gets the very next play that gets him inside that leads to the Aaron Anderson touchdown that ties the ball game up. Xavier Thomas was big down the stretch. He got you big chunk plays. And I think that's what Garrett Nussmeier was looking for as the game progressed. And you saw a lot of that from the game. But look, he didn't have to make those plays a lot. Because all he had to do was sometimes check it down to his running backs, whether it be Durham, whether it be Williams. It didn't matter who it was. You knew that they were going to get plays, whether it be 5-6 yards a catch or anything like that. You knew that at the end of the day, you could control the way that Ole Miss was playing soft in the zone on your defense. So you were able to get chunk plays off of that, and you were able to get yourself in a good position to win the football game. I will say this, though. There were a lot of wasted possessions. You had plenty of opportunities to score more, especially in the I think the first or second half. Yeah, no. I think it was the second drive of the game. You have that horrible play call where you run on zone read. Look, if Garrett Nussmeier keeps that football, he gets down near the 35. He probably picks up the first down. But because he handed it off to Caleb Jackson, that's what leads to the -3. Ole Miss reads it perfectly. That's also what leads to the early touchdown 4 plays later. I'll tell you this. That LSU defense bowed up. They bowed up near the end of the game. They absolutely shut down this Ole Miss defense, this Ole Miss offense. And everybody went into this one. Everybody looked back at 50-5, 49. You knew that LSU's defense had shown its weak spots throughout the year. We wouldn't know how Blake Baker's defense would perform. You've seen them give up the big play at times. How would they respond to adversity? Well, guys, in the second half alone, Ole Miss had 2 field goals. 2. If you count overtime, they had 3. When you got into the red zone, LSU's defense bowed up big time. And that's what you needed from that Blake Baker defense. You needed that defense to finally step up. Much better than what Matt House did last year. We would have probably been in a bigger blowout than what the scoreboard shows. Guys, this game does not need to go into overtime most of the time. And I looked at how this game went out throughout the entire game. I was thinking to myself, I think that LSU went into this one knowing that they were going to be in a dogfight, but they had so many missed opportunities that this could have been a much bigger margin of victory than what the scoreboard showed. You were inefficient on third down. You were only 6 of 16. But, guys, fourth down conversions were huge. Huge down the stretch. Penalties, the crowd noise that factored into it. Huge down the stretch. Ole Miss, I think, had 3 false start penalties following, I believe, the second half alone. My boy, Southern Charm Sports, didn't know what was coming first, this start of this or the end of Western Michigan and Akron. Yeah, that was quite an ending, I should say. Dude, the endings around college football have been crazy. Not only with that, but also with what you saw in Oregon, with Ole Miss, with that game. I mean, bro, we've had a hell of a day in college football, and it's going to continue to be like that throughout the rest of the year. So with a team like LSU down the stretch, I think when you look ahead to next week, this is where you start to see trap games start to take place, because the next 2 weeks for LSU, they go to Arkansas, they go to Texas A&M to Kyle Field. If you remember, the last couple of meetings between LSU and Arkansas have led for field goal games. This is going to be a tight one going into that one. I think that this could be an offensive shootout. And I think the over-under for that one, don't be surprised if that one gets to around 53 or 54 and a half, just knowing how these two offenses have been and how dominant they can be down the stretch. If Taylor Green plays his A game, if he plays like he did down the stretch against Tennessee, and despite losing him last week due to injury, I would be expecting Arkansas to potentially get another big win at Fayetteville, because that's a difficult place to play. That's a very difficult place to play. So, guys, I would be really concerned if I'm LSU looking forward to next week of going up against Arkansas, who literally just saved their head coach's job last week, and now they're coming in. Both teams are coming off of a very, very big win. Obviously, LSU with tonight, and Arkansas last week against Tennessee. So now you go into today with next week, with what LSU brings, with their offensive side of the ball and how they performed, with what Arkansas can bring with that front three. I think Arkansas is going to go play the same defense that they played against Tennessee with. They dropped 6 and they dared Tennessee to throw the football. And you saw how inaccurate Nico Iamaleava was. So this is going to continue to be a trend as the season goes on. And we'll also get to more of Tennessee and Alabama as the stream goes on, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, guys, do us a favor. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe for more notifications so that you are notified for every time we post a brand new video here on 4th of Forever. A little thing I do want to address before we go further. Most of you know, for those of you that are in the stream or watching or listening via Spaces or so, or just tuning in, following the live stream, many of you knew that I was a part of SEC Unfiltered. That is no longer the case. I have decided to step aside from SEC Unfiltered. There have been some internal conflict, but I will not get into that. I've enjoyed my time there. I've enjoyed the opportunity to continue to be a big part of what that channel has been going through. I appreciate Chris Phillips and the rest of the SEC Unfiltered crew for giving me an opportunity to continue to showcase my talent and let a college kid, a 20-year-old college kid, showcase his skills over on a big stage like SEC Unfiltered. But we're going to still keep the show rolling with what we have right now with 4th and Forever, and we're going to continue to build our brand, guys. So there's going to be more content being generated from this side of the space. Looking forward and looking at Ole Miss, this was one that if you're Lane Kiffin, this was a one that you needed to have back. Wow. First of all, everybody knows about the penalties that you had, that ones that cost you. I think you had 2 unsportsmanlikes, 3 or 4 false starts, just little simple or pre-snap errors that really killed you down the stretch and killed a lot of drives that you had. And even on the first few drives, you had the drop touchdown pass by Trey Harris. You had many other opportunities that you had going into this game that really you could have put this game away many times before. You had many drives that you got down to the red zone where you had to capitalize off of turnovers, and you weren't able to do that, especially in the fourth quarter. I think you had 2 or 3 drives where you got inside the LS on the opposite side of the field, and you had drives just floundering. You had to settle for field goals instead of getting 6 and potentially making that a double-digit game and making LSU work to potentially get back into this football game. I'm surprised. Did the injury to Henry Parrish hurt? I would say yes, but I would also say no, it didn't, because Ulysses Bentley came in and was a big factor as to why Ole Miss's ground game was so dominant. But if you take away the one big 50-yard run that he had, 11 carries, 107 yards, you take that away, it's just 10 carries for 57 yards. Really, this was an even ball game from start to finish. I think both defensive lines came to play. They put plenty of pressure on Jackson Dart and Garrett Nussmeier, respectively. And I think both quarterbacks made their mistakes throughout the game. But at the end of the day, Garrett Nussmeier was the one that made the big stop at the end of the game and really dominated as the game went on. Guys, let's go ahead and we'll move away from LSU and Ole Miss. That's obviously a big one for Brian Kelly, just FYI. I would say, too, that this was a bigger game that he needed to win more than he needed to win that Alabama game 2 years ago. Because if you remember 2 years ago, we didn't really know what to expect with LSU going into this game. But now that when you look at this 2 years later, you start to really realize this was so much more important because it's year 3 of the Brian Kelly era. He said in his preseason speech, whenever he talked to the media, that he said, "Judge me by year 3." And at the start of the year, everybody was ready to just say, well, it's going to be a long season. You have the near loss to South Carolina where you got away with 1. Your defense looked vulnerable at times. Your offense was inconsistent at times. You couldn't put the football game away most of the time. But you finally were able to close out the deal. You finally were able to do it. You finally made big plays down the stretch. You got the football to your playmakers down the end of the game. Guys, this was a much-needed victory for Brian Kelly to silence the critics and to finally establish himself as a legitimate threat in the SEC. To finally, guys, you guys don't understand how much this one means to the folks in Baton Rouge. For all that they've had to endure with Brian Kelly, for all of his corniness, for all of what he usually does, this was huge for Brian Kelly to win. So what does this mean in the long run when it comes to the college football playoff picture? And what does it also mean when it comes to the SEC race? What keeps LSU still in that hunt for the college football playoff? And it doesn't really require them to win the SEC because now you have that signature win that you needed. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we are also live on Instagram as we get this thing started. Let's talk to our good friends at Charm Sports. Talked about them Warhawks going 5-1 to start the year. Big time Hawks. Yeah, that's huge, especially for the ULM community. I mean, I have got a lot of friends that are around the ULM area. Holy cow. Holy cow. The way that they've started their season has just been unbelievable. You get the big win last week against a good James Madison squad. And then Brian Vincent in his first year has just done unbelievable. And look, he was really qualified to take the job too. You saw what he did at UAB. Despite coming in pressure situations, filling in for a legendary coach like Bill Clark, and then he comes in and does unbelievable things at ULM, and already they're off to one of their best starts that they've had in program history. And you're looking down the stretch, guys, this is a very winnable Sun Belt conference that they have an opportunity to win. I know Southern Charm Sports. I know that things are going pretty rough down there in UAB territory. Now that I mentioned a group of 5 team, I know that you guys just happened to lose to Army. Let's just be honest. We can be honest with both of each other. The Trent Dilfer experiment is done. There's no way you can tell me that he has an opportunity to stay any further than what he has been this year. I mean, this has just been a disaster of a franchise that we've seen from Trent Dilfer. He inherited a program that literally was one of the top in all of the CUSA. And then in just 2 years, he's driven this team all the way to the very bottom. And yes, conference realignment may have had something to do with it. But at the same time, you have stiffer competition. You have to dominate recruiting. You have to dominate the portal. And you've gotten guys from different schools to fill those gaps in. But let's just be honest. Trent Dilfer is not a college head coach. He won 2 state championships at a private school in 2A in Nashville. That's not really impressive. That's not a great resume to have as a head coach. And if you want to say that, oh, well, Trent Dilfer did this. Trent Dilfer did this whenever he did that. Dude, Trent Dilfer was a terrible hire to begin with. I don't know why you even go to that. And you start to think about what the program could have been had Bill Clark had not been sick and all, and you have been able to keep a guy like Bryant Vincent. But at the end of the year, dude, this has just been an embarrassing year for UAB. Dude, I had all high hopes for UAB when they came into the American Athletic. I thought that they were going to be able to continue their winning tradition. And again, like I mentioned, moving from one conference to another is very, very difficult. It's not easy for a couple of teams to do such. But at the same time, guys, you have to be able to adjust, especially with what SMU is doing in the ACC, what Texas has been able to do. And yes, they may have more resources, and yes, they may have more money than these group of 5 squads that are coming into different conferences, but it's all about adjusting, and it's all about being able to counter off of what your opponent is doing. And obviously UAB has not been able to do that since they first began their series in the American since last year. So that's been very disappointing to see. I hope for the best. I know that Mark Ingram has a lot on his plate, but at the same time, you got to start to think that change is coming very soon in a lot of group of 5 teams, especially in the Sun Belt Athletic Conference as well. Let's go ahead and let's get back to some other conference games that have gone on. Oh, Lordy. Red River was quite a disappointment. I thought it was going to be closer than what people thought. I thought Oklahoma's defense was going to be able to withstand what Texas's offense could bring, and they did for the most part. But, dude, it was the ground game that really helped the Burnt Orange get themselves in a good position to win that football game. Everybody was saying that Jackson Arnold was going to start in the second half after the slow start that Michael Hawkins had. But, guys, you got to remember this. Mike Hawkins is a freshman. Mike Hawkins is still young. He still has a lot of opportunities right in front of him to be able to have some sort of success at the next level. Dude, this is going to be a rough stretch for what Oklahoma has for the next couple of games. And it's going to get really, really difficult as the season goes on. So, for Ole Miss the next couple of games, you get South Carolina next week. You go to Ole Miss, you're at Missouri, you play Alabama, and you finish at LSU. It's going to be very hard. Yeah, they had the great start. They started off 4-1. They got to number 18. They had the close loss to Tennessee. But, I mean, losing to a team in a buzzsaw like Texas is very difficult. I won't lie. It will not surprise me one bit if this team ends up being either 6-6 or 7-5 once the season ends. Because I don't see them beating Ole Miss at Vaught Hemingway. I don't see them beating Missouri and Farouk. That could be a toss-up game, though. I don't see them beating Alabama despite it being at home. And I don't see them beating LSU in Death Valley for the final game of the regular season, especially on senior night. That's going to be very difficult to do. Again, got another comment. Troy is also sucking, but it feels just totally different. It's like there's limited accountability in Birmingham versus Troy. I've sat in on the park compressors after Troy games, and it's just a different vibe. I agree. I mean, this has been a different Troy team in recent memory, bruh. I mean, I'm used to Troy just coming out of the Sun Belt on a regular basis, winning 10 to 11 games. And then all of a sudden this year, it just seems so different. It's kind of embarrassing to say in the least. And look, I had high hopes for Troy again, you know. But at the end of the day, I mean, with a different coaching staff and with a different fan base that you have, nobody's going to the games too. It's one thing for a team to suck, but yet you still have that fan base that still shows up on a daily basis, and it's another thing. And yes, the loss of John Summerall hurts, especially in what y'all have, but hey, there's no telling what's going to happen down the stretch. I'm hoping that Troy can pick it back up, go back to the years where Brandon Silvers was there and the rest of the Troy squad was when you upset LSU. You were consistently a contender for the Sun Belt Conference where you were the dark horse for a potential group of 5 CFP berth, but that obviously wouldn't have happened because of the dominance of the American Athletic. That's why the Sun Belt kind of got left behind, which sucks, but at the same time, it is what it is at the end of the day. Back to Red River. The ground game for Texas was unbelievable. Trey Wisner just had a heck of a game. And I told you guys during the preseason that Trey Wisner was going to be released a heck out of it. And he said all day. 13 carries, 118, 9 yards a carry to go along with the 1 touchdown. The biggest turning point, though, it's 7-3. He fumbles the football right near the end zone. Texas recovers that one. But if that ball goes out of the end zone, you got to think about this. It's literally 2 minutes left in the half. If they don't recover that football, that goes back to the back of the end zone. Oklahoma's got the football, and they've got a bit of momentum going into the half. This may not have been a 21-3 deficit that Oklahoma had to face and try to come back from. This might have given their offense and defense a bit more of a jolt, especially going into the half, and especially with all the momentum potentially riding back on their side. So, obviously, there's a lot of struggle going on with Oklahoma, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They don't have an answer offensively. They don't really have a decent quarterback that they can rely on. Michael Hawkins is a young guy that I think that Brent Venables and Seth Luttrell are going to rely on for the rest of the year. But you got to think at some point that Jackson Arnold is the better passing quarterback, and you got to get him in on situations. Mike Hawkins is just young. He's not there yet experience-wise. He still needs to get that young experience out the way. Get a guy like Jackson Arnold to teach him and be able to run this offense and see if he can do it again as the season goes on. So we'll just have to see from there. Another game that was an interesting one, Alabama, South Carolina. I know I mentioned it very briefly at the beginning of our live stream, but guys, y'all don't know how much of a fun game it was to watch. I'm literally in a boutique shop watching this game, I did not care what everybody else said about me. I could care less, to be honest with you. But I looked at how this game was. Guys, this is going to be an unbelievable game. This is going to be a fun season in college football. I know I've mentioned this plenty of times and plenty down the stretch. But guys, I don't think it's emphasized enough about how big that this game was for Alabama to steal. Because if you go down into Tennessee next week 4-2, that would have been very big trouble for Bama and company. That would not have been a pretty phone call conversation that we would have had on Kalen DeBoer's side. So I will say, look, everybody knows it. The Kalen DeBoer honeymoon is over with. Nobody wants to be able to make sure that this game is continued. They don't want this honeymoon to end. Everybody's still stuck Georgia win. Yeah, that win. But guys, it's time to end it. It's time to end the hype around this one. And unfortunately, as much as it sucks for as much as it sucks for a team like Alabama to have this sort of just embarrassment where you literally went into this ball game knowing that you should have ran flat over USC's offense. Guys, that front four gave Jalen Milroe a lot of fits down the stretch of the game. Guys, that fourth quarter was insane. I mean, insane. The last minute 30 was unbelievable, too. It's 14-0, and Alabama's about to go into the half up. There's no way that anybody could have predicted that this would happen. You're up 14-0. All right. You're up 14-0. Mazeo Bennett catches a touchdown pass. Boom. 14-7. The very ensuing kickoff runs all the way back into the end zone. Everybody thinks, okay, it's a kneel down coming back out to the 25. Nope, it ends up. The returner's momentum carried him all the way into the end zone. And the referees look at that and say, safety, which was unbelievable. I mean, that was just a crazy ending to the half. That was just one of those things that you don't really see. And then 3 plays later, Jalen Milroe gives it right back to South Carolina. Alex Herrera gets the go-ahead field goal. It's up 14-12. Then South Carolina proceeds to take the lead the very next quarter. Guys, this was just an action-packed game all around. You had everything. Lenore Sellers really played well. He probably played his best game of the year. He played much better than he did against LSU. 23 of 31, 238, 2 touchdowns to just the lone interception at the end of the game. 16 carries for 19 yards. Guys, don't take away from what he did. Because he really performed a high rate with what Lenore Sellers did. I'm really impressed. Really impressed from what Lenore Sellers put together. But look, better teams are just going to end up winning the football games and have better opportunities. And unfortunately, that's the case with a team like Alabama. They had a much better opportunity to win the football game at the end of the game. And as much as it for LSU to come, or as much as it sucks for South Carolina the way it ended, you get the go-ahead field goal to win the game, or you get the field goal that basically puts you in a position to have an opportunity to, I wouldn't say win the game, but get you in a prime position to be in striking distance. You get the touchdown. You get a throw that you really should have had. That back corner of the end zone really hurt Lenore Sellers, and it's hurt him most of the year. So this was a big missed opportunity for this team. And guys, this is one of those things that you really would love to have back. This is one of those games that if you're South Carolina, you deserve to win that game. Alabama just straight up lost it. They lost the football game. And as much as it sucks for what this team did, as much as people would love to see a team like what Alabama has done the last several years, and then they just can't finish the ball game. Unfortunately, it's just one of those days. So, again, Alabama survives. Next week is going to be an interesting one between Jalen Milroe and Nico Iamaleava. Saves what could have been a top 15 matchup and turns it into a top 5 matchup yet again. But guys, give credit where credit is due. South Carolina's defense gave Alabama consistent fits all day long. They consistently got pressure on Jalen Milroe. They were relentless throughout the game, and they did what needed to be done. But at the end of the day, Alabama's offense just did just enough to get the victory. South Carolina just came up just short. The onside kick was crazy near the end. That was a decent throw, but it looked like Nick Harbor kind of gave up on the route too. But look, give that dude plenty of credit too. That's a Sunday player. That is a Sunday player that'll be playing very soon. So that was a heck of a ball game. Tennessee and Florida. Dude, what is going on with Tennessee's offense? What is going on here? Something's off. Something is really off. Because Nico Iamaleava made a lot of mistakes throughout the game. Nico Iamaleava made a hell of a lot of mistakes. You have a fumble that you lost early on in the game. You had 3 sacks against him. Jaden Robinson had a great game. 7 tackles to go along with a sack and a half. Tyreek Sapp got him a sack, and also the interception by Sharif Denson. You start to think that, look, Tennessee is very vulnerable. Tennessee's offense has had their weaknesses shown up quite a bit. They showcased that against Oklahoma of being unable to protect a guy like Nico Iamaleava. Their offensive line has shown its weaknesses at some points during the season. And at the end of the day, a much better running back made the biggest play, and that was Dylan Sampson in overtime. So give credit to Tennessee. They came in and were very dominant. They managed to make the big play when it mattered most, just because they were 4 of 15, 2 of 2 on fourth down compared to 0 for 2 by Florida. Special players make special plays, but you got to win the time of possession if you want to beat a good team like Bama this upcoming weekend. Closing out our post-game show on 4th and Forever's College Football Nightcap. I think the biggest one, I know that Southern kind of mentioned it. This is his comment from earlier. Tulane is going to reap the rewards of several Troy guys on the roster too. She now might be an All-American DB. Yeah, I've seen Tulane play quite a bit so far this year. I mean, he's not wrong. Their secondary is really, really good. They are unbelievably talented. How about Army, by the way? How about Army putting up 40 on UAB? Army's 6-0. Navy's, I think, still undefeated, I believe. At least I think. Yes, Navy's undefeated. And Navy's got Notre Dame in 2 weeks. So I think College Game Day could be making their way there for next week. I don't know where College Game Day could be going. They could be going back to Darrell K. Memorial for Georgia and Texas. And I think that Texas is going to end up winning that football game. I think Georgia's defense, just the way that they performed today against Mississippi State, I don't think that Georgia will really be able to hang in with a team like Texas. And I'll admit this to all of my haters out in Austin. I was wrong about Texas at the beginning of the year. And let me briefly show you guys what I'm talking about. And I wrote this back whenever I was with SEC Unfiltered. And it's one I'm very, very proud of, too, as a former writer there and a former content creator. But you know what? Hey, it is what it is at the end of the day. It's this one. I said that Texas was not back to start the year. I didn't. But boy, was I wrong. I was extremely, extremely wrong. I was really, really wrong. I made the horrible mistake of saying that was the case. Sorry. Here's what I said. Isaiah Bond, Quinn Ewers, and elite offensive line will be back. Where's your star tight end? After Michigan, you don't play an actual top 25 defense until Georgia. Oh, Lordy. The secondary performed well so far. But that, again, they haven't played an actual quarterback yet. So I wouldn't be too hype on a team like Texas just yet. Even coming close, I said 8 at best. Oof. No Nation. One of the worst schedules in the SEC. Oof. I could be wrong about them. I don't know yet. I'm being for real. I have no idea what to think whenever I talk about a team like Texas. Because I do think that Texas has a lot of great opportunities. I do think that they're going to be able to, down the stretch, make some big plays. And I do think that with the amount of receivers that they have and the amount of skill weapons that they have, they will be able to contend on a consistent basis for an SEC title. And I do think that will happen. Do I think it's going to come on a consistent basis? I have no idea. I don't. I think it will happen, but do I know for sure? Absolutely not. We'll just have to see whenever they do end up playing a team like Georgia this upcoming week. I think next week just determined whether or not that Texas is for real. If they lose next week at DKR, people are going to look at them and say, ooh, this could be a really, really long season for a team like Texas. This could be a team that down the stretch of the year, could they finish the ball game? We'll see. We'll just have to see. I'm not sure. Am I hooked on them yet? I have no idea. We'll just have to see after this upcoming next week. But they were dominant on defense. They really put pressure on Michael Hawkins. They were consistent on the edge. They were able to consistently put pressure on the interior. The run game, run game for Oklahoma was irrelevant. They were able to shut that down. The interior of that offensive line, I've continued to say it for Oklahoma, they're a problem. They have no reason to even be on the field. look, most of this wasn't Jackson Arnold's fault. You just had to get some consistency with the offense. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think it was fair that Oklahoma pulled him and started Michael Hawkins. And yes, the offense kind of generated, but at the same time, you got to give a guy like Jackson Arnold time to develop in the Seth Littrell offense. So, do I know for sure what's going to happen next? Not really. But you know what? It is what it is at the end of the day. Oh, guys. We're 45 minutes in. That's pretty impressive. I'm not going to lie that I've been able to stay around for this long. But I'll tell you what. This was an impressive slate of college football. I'm really, really excited to see what Week 8 will bring to the table. I think that you're going to be in for another great week. We got 2 top 10 matchups coming in. A lot of surprises are going to happen next week. I'm telling you, a lot of surprises are about to happen. A lot of frauds are still going to be released. I think that there's a lot of separation Saturday that still needs to happen. Down the stretch, though, you're going to see a lot. This is where you'll see the pretenders and the contenders really separate as you get closer to the month of November. And that's when the first CFP playoff polls will come out. That's when we'll finally get our predictions to when we get to college football weekend. That's going to wrap it up here for College Football Nightcap here on Fourth and Forever. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know we had a couple of you guys pop in on Instagram, on Facebook, on X, on YouTube. Guys, we appreciate your continued support. Appreciate you guys staying around. Thanks again for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe for more daily notifications so that you guys are notified for every time we post a new video. Until next time, I'm Lucas, still saying so long.